In this video I want to look at my typical workflow for processing a black and white image from a colour. Now we start here with this colour image which I took of the soon to be revamped pier at Cleethorpes. Have you got your tickets yet for the opening? Well, no rush, I think there'll be some left. Anyhow, I want to change this into a moody monotone image. I think it's okay in colour, but I think it will work better in black and white. Because I think there's some nice clouds here which I think would look nice and contrasty. So let's give it a go. First thing I'm going to do is go down to the lens corrections just to see if there's any problems or issues I can correct. If I go down here, I want to enable my lens profile correction, and you can see that it does a little bit of a shift at the edges. And I'll also tick remove chromatic aberration, though on this image that shouldn't be a big issue. Okay, that done. What next? Well, I think we'll go up to the basic panel and we'll start at the top and we'll work down. The image is still a little bit light, so I think I'll just pull the exposure down just a little bit. And then what I normally do is I'll pull the highlights right over to the left, put the shadows right over to the right. And now I'll set the black and white points. And I'll do that by holding the Alt key down and dragging the white slider. Now the image will go black, and I'm dragging this until I start to see some white appearing, which is the clipping. When that happens, I let go. Same with the black point, hold the Alt key down, click on the slider, the screen goes white, and I drag it until I get a nice bit of clipping and I let go. And that's those two set. I think at this point I'll make it a little bit more contrasty. I'll just pull that contrast up a little bit. It will be oversaturating things a bit, but this is going to be monotone anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we'll add a little bit of clarity. Yeah, see what that does. Yeah, that gives it a little bit of punch. And then the vibrance and saturation don't matter because we're converting this to a monotone image anyway. So what next? Well, let's convert it to black and white. And my preferred method is in the HSL panel. And I'm just going to click the B&W, or the black and white. Now this gives us access to a lot of sliders, and each one of these sliders it controls a different colour range. So here I've got the reds, the oranges, the yellows. Let me show you. So we should have some blue up in this sky in the underlying image. So if I pull that blue slider to the left, that should darken all them blues and give that sky, yeah, a little bit of punch. It's made everything else a little bit darker. So let's see if there's any aquas, let's see if there's any lighter blues. And there is, so I can actually lighten a little bit of those dark areas by pulling on the aqua slider. Let's have a look up now at the reds. I don't think there's much reds in this. Oh, there is, there's the door on the pavilion, that's red. So I'll pull that right over just to lighten it up a little bit so you can see the door. Oranges, well they should hit this foreground area here. And so I can lighten that foreground area up a little. And the yellows, well that's going to hit this sand at the foreground. So I'll just lighten everything up a little bit. Like that. And that's looking good. Let's just do a quick comparison. By pressing the Y key, we can look at before and after. I'll just close down that side panel and I'll close down the film strip so you can see the images a little bit better. Yeah, I think we're going in a good direction with that. We'll press the Y key again to go back to full screen view. Now if I look, I think the pavilion and the little area underneath here I think is a little bit dark. So I'll go back up and we'll use one of the tools. We'll use the adjustment brush. So I'm going to click on that. Now there's already some sliders set, so I'd like to set them back to default. So I can do that by just clicking where it says Effect. Double click on that and it resets all the sliders back to 0. So I'd like a little bit of exposure, maybe just to lighten it up a little bit. And I've got a reasonable size brush, maybe a little bit smaller, but I can change that with the square bracket key. The left square bracket makes it smaller, the right square bracket makes it bigger. I'm just going to paint in a little bit of exposure on this area, just to lighten it up just a little bit. I'll try a little bit more. Maybe just try the shadows a little bit. Yep. I'm happy with, well, that's probably a bit too much actually. Let's drop that down a little bit, because I may have to just go over that edge there. That's better. I'm okay with that. Now the sky. It could still do with a little bit more drama. So I'm going to do this with a local adjustment. I'll click on New. But this time I'll use a little bit of negative exposure. And we'll push the contrast. And I'll try a little bit of clarity as well, I think. And we'll have a nice big brush. And we'll just paint in a little bit over that sky, just to give it a little bit more of a dramatic look to it. Yeah, that's looking good. I like that. Right, now if I zoom in, let's have a quick look at 1:1. You can see that there is a little bit of noise and some artifacts being generated. So can we do anything about that? Well, let's have a go at that. Let's go down to the detail panel. And here we're looking at sharpening and noise reduction. So let's try a little bit of luminance, noise reduction. See if we can soften that off. And a little bit of colour. Yeah, that's better. You can see we just get it right. Just takes the edge off that and smooths out that sky for us. Let's go back to have a look at that. Yeah, that's maybe still a bit too much. Take a little bit more off. And I'm quite happy with that. Now you can, if you've got Lightroom 5.2 or later, there is an interesting little step you can take now. If you hover over the pin of any adjustment and right click, you've got an option to duplicate. So if I wanted that adjustment again, I can now just click on it and it will duplicate that adjustment for me. I think that's a bit too much, so I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Control and Z just to get rid of that last adjustment. I'm quite happy with that as it is. So maybe a little bit of sharpening. So I'll pull that up, just do a little bit of sharpening. And then the mask feature I find really useful on here. So if I hold the Alt key down and click on the mask slider, you can see that it's actually masking it out. Anywhere that's black is now not being sharpened. Anywhere that's white is being sharpened. So I've got a nice bit of sharpening going off in the edges of the cloud, the high contrast edges in the cloud, on the pier, little bits on the beach, but not in the general parts of the sky. So that's good, that's cool, I'm happy with that. I think let's finish it off with, let's do a crop. Because if I look at this, I think it would look better as a little bit of a letterbox. So I'm going to drag that in. But you'll see I've got constrained proportions, so it won't let me move outside that aspect ratio. If I want to do that, I've got to go over to the padlock and click on it to unlock it. And now I've got free reign. So I'll bring that right over to the edge, bring that right over to that edge, and I'll make sure that I just crop off that yellow sand. And I've got a nice bit of sky, so I'll double click to accept that. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Let's have a before and after with the Y key. Yeah, I think that's looking really moody. I think to finish off, I'll put a bit of a vignette on. I do like that for focusing the attention. So we'll go down to the effects panel and we'll pull the amount slider just down a little bit. It's interesting to take all the feather off sometimes. So if you take all the feather off, you can actually see the edge and see where exactly that you're going to put this vignette, and you can then use the midpoint to move it in and out. or the roundness if you want it rounder or squarer. I'll sit it somewhere like that, and then I'll put some feather back again, and then I'll put a little bit of the amount back in again. And I think I'm about done here. I'll just press the Y key just to give a little bit of a before and after. I'll press the tab key to get rid of most of what's on the interface, just so you can see them side by side together. And I think we've made a considerable improvement in that image. It's now nice and contrasty, it's got some punch, we've got some lovely clouds. I think that was a worthwhile edit. So that wraps up our conversation on my preferred method of converting an image to black and white. I hope you found it useful. Let's have a quick summary. We added some global adjustments in the basic panel. We converted to black and white using the HSL panel. We refined the image further with local adjustments with the crop tool and the adjustment brush. We reduced noise and sharpened using the detail panel. And then we finished the whole thing off with a vignette using the effects panel. If you did find this useful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss future episodes. And if there are any areas of Lightroom that you're having problems with, please leave me a comment, and if I can, I'll include it as a future video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.